Hello everyone, welcome to the second edition of the Raw Report. We've had some fantastic reviews in week one. Pete Elliott spun a couple of yarns and it was very well received. So today we're continuing the trend. We're going to our pretty immediate past president, the great Gerard O'Sullivan. Remember to subscribe to the Raw Report in Apple Podcasts and or Spotify to make sure you get this episode directly into your ears as soon as it releases. So, as I mentioned, we've got Gerard here. So he's got quite a long history at the Seymour Lions. He's been involved for quite a while. We might let him elaborate on that and not throw him under the bus in terms of how many years that's been. He's the joint longest-serving president in our club's history, a past player, long-time sponsor of the club, and there's not many people who've done more for our club in its history than Gerard. So it's a pleasure to have him joining us today. Gerard, welcome to the Raw Report.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
Now, we might go back to the very start because you do have a very long-standing connection to our club. Tell us how you first became involved, perhaps when that was, and take us up to the modern day. How long has that involvement been?
So my first involvement was coming out of St Mary's junior footy program into the Seymour Thirds, and that was 40 years ago. So played here a couple of years in the Thirds, which in our final year we made the grand final, but were beaten by, I think it was Shep United in the day. But then through that court, after that, I went in through the reserves footy and then the senior footy, and then more time spent in admin and volunteering than anything, really.
Beautiful, and we might touch on those playing days. You won't get away with that so easy. We spoke to a couple of your teammates from that era. Crafty forward was a description thrown around. Another one, not sure in jest or seriousness, was fearless and hard-working. Perhaps that one might not quite have been as serious. So perhaps how would you describe yourself as a player? And given some of those people we've spoken to, they're quite large personalities. How was it playing in an era where Seymour had some of those superstars of the GV and people who weren't shy in being forward?
To say crafty, I'll take that as a compliment. I kicked the occasional goal, had a few good games, but I wouldn't call myself anything sensational. Courageous, or whatever that terminology you use, I would have thought most people thought I slept with the light on personally, but no, I had a great time playing with. We weren't terribly successful through the 80s and coming up to 1991 when we were. There was and Pete touched on it last week during his podcast about the quality of the people that came back to the club to play in that mainly locally born and bred environment. We had, and ably led by Jono and Glenn Cole and Matt and Dick Martin and Darren Comey, and that's a pretty good roll call that year. And I was only thinking today on the way down, the contributions of a lot of the members of that squad, I'll call it, because there's a few guys who missed out that could have played through injury, but we've got guys who've senior coach, we've got guys who are reserve coach, we've got Stu Locke, myself and Matt O'Sullivan have been presidents since then. Brocky and Bates were runners in premiership years. So, Glenn coach, Mick coach, Dick Martin coach at twos, Mark Bender coach at twos, Ben Davies coaching currently. I will have missed a few, but the contribution back to the club from that 91 squad's been amazing.
Yeah, definitely a pretty special era and fantastic to see so many of them still involved. And that is a good little connection there. You've mentioned Dick Martin and Glenn Cole. I'm also reliably informed the cricket was probably as tough as the footy back then, and there might have been a bit of a divide. Perhaps Captain Grumpy at Eastern Hill, Gerard O'Sullivan, and some difficulties with some of the boys at the Royals. So how did you go, I guess, taking that cricket season and putting it in the back pocket and getting into the footy and being best mates and having to stick up for these blokes who you might have been getting stuck into pretty hard over the course of the summer?
Well, I had to get over the rivalry pretty quick because the only way I got a kick was if Glenn handballed to me or Dick handballed to me. So that had to get put in the cupboard pretty quick. But the actual facts were it's quite different to today's environment. Was we would finish playing the grand final one week and we'd be playing all together next week in a home and away match for the Seymour Footy Netball Club. So, yeah, that was tremendous cricket, and there was certainly large rivalries there, but we all pulled it together in the end and worked as a team after all that.
And definitely an era of some pretty special all-round sports people as well. So perhaps a bit of a golden era for our region. And we did also hear about the Sunday cleanups at the club rooms. Apparently it was a case of coming down to maybe pick up a couple of cans and bottles and chuck them in the bin, and gets a little bit out of hand from there occasionally back in the day. Yeah,
well, recovery was a lot different then than it is now. There's no such thing as an ice bath, and none of us even knew the river ran through the town, let alone get in to look after our muscles. Basically, Sunday was designed to, come down and pick up your car, but probably slept till Monday anyway. But there's a couple of old characters here. Ray Fraser, a wonderful old fellow who worked the barbecue here in the bar for many, many years, and Max Lewecki, bless his souls, passed on. But Max used to run the bar back in our heyday, and Max's idea of recovery Sunday morning is, come down, boys, help me clean up. So we'd clean up some stubbies and mop the floor and do whatever. And then he'd mixed up a 20-litre drum of Clear milk, which led to a couple of heart starters. But the chaps sort of didn't leave it there. We used to go and grab a box of stubbies, a box of VB stubbies, and Mark Bender would get a box of Strong Bros because he couldn't drink beer too well, and head out to either the dams out at Euroka and Yabby or out to Dick Wars at the Valleys there and just carry on for the afternoon. So there's a few tough Mondays and also a few tough Tuesdays because no one actually got over the soreness of the Saturdays.
And we definitely intend to get the great Mark Bender on here. Is that perhaps where the love of Kalora and milk originally formed?
Yeah, well, you might need an interpreter with Mark when he gets here, but no, he'll do a great job. And Mark was just a little side story of Mark. Fantastic player. Used to be he was known to us as a speedy wingman, and he was a very good player. He had a little run at Carlton there. He was invited down there at one stage, but he was the tragedy story of 91 because he played, it's either 179 or 181 games on the trot, and he dislocated his shoulder at training the Thursday night before. It was a shoulder and a hamstring of Vic Verk. The week of the final, I missed out. So, yeah, that was a horror story for Mark. But, yeah, I'd love you to get him on, Mitch. That'd be a great yarn.
Wonderful. And the shoulder hasn't stopped him giving the best haircuts in Seymour for the last however many years that's been. So, well done, Mr. Bender. Then for you, unfortunately, you ended up retiring at quite an early age. I'm sure that wasn't capability-based. A few tough injuries back in the day. So what made you end up give up playing, and I guess from there, what sort of encouraged you to stay around, stay involved at the club and get into the administrative side?
Yeah, I had chronic troubles with my hamstrings, but probably the major point to retiring or finishing up playing was at work mainly. We were running our own business, and it was just a bit difficult to be limping around all week after playing footy and stuff like that. And a lot of young tradies have gone down that path, but one of the things was Sandra was still heavily involved with netball, and so I was still coming along. And I think I was 24. Jack Bishop was the president of the footy club then, and Jack's a wonderful bloke and still a great mate now. And he encouraged me to come along and join the committee, which I did. And I was Jack's vice president there for a year or so, and I really quite enjoyed the admin side of it. So, yeah, that's probably where the volunteering started, I guess.
Wonderful, and you threw me under the bus a couple of years ago, and that's why I'm sitting here today. So you've definitely passed that skill on as well. Then you obviously, as you've said, you're working pretty hard, I imagine, and raising a family. So we jumped to 2012 to 2015. That's your first stint as president, taking over from Trevor Gunn. How would you describe the role of president, particularly having done it for as long as anyone has ever done it here, and bearing in mind it's the most important job in Seymour?
My appointment came around in quite a strange way, actually, because prior to Trevor Gunn, Stuart Locke was the president, and I shoehorned him into that one, and much to the dismay of his wife, and I never lived that down ever. And then after Stu had decided he had enough, I sort of actually conned Trevor Gunn in to do it. And then after Trev finished up, the pair of them ganged up on me and said, "You're doing it, otherwise you're going to end up in a lot of trouble." So I didn't really have a choice, but what I did find was I found it tremendously rewarding doing it. I can't thank the multiple amount of volunteers who would put their hand up and help without any nudging. They just came down and said, what can I do for you guys? What can I do for the club? And that's ongoing. I know a lot of the same faces still here, but it's always refreshing to see new people come to the club with new kids through the thirds or through the junior netball program. The guys that come up and put their hand up and say, "Hey, I'm here to help. How can I do that?" That's the rewarding bit. I always had a bit of a motto, whereas I probably wouldn't ever ask someone to do something I wouldn't do myself. So I think that sort of helped in the case of, if there was a case where you had to say, "Hey, Mitch, can you give us a hand?" You say, "Well, I've seen you do it, I'm happy to do it." I think we got a bit of mileage out of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of little things that happen that no one's really aware of behind the scenes. So it's definitely a big task and sometimes a thankless one. And then somehow you return for another 6 years from 2019 to 2024. And some pretty interesting things happen in that period, which we'll get back to, including a pandemic, which wouldn't have been very easy for the club. Is there anything that sticks out to you from either stint as a highlight? Is it, as you've mentioned, the people you meet, the community? Is it premierships or something else?
Oh, I think if you start on a negative and finish on a positive, it was very distressing to see the youth of our town and the mature age ones as well being absolutely stopped by COVID. Huey Jones and those guys who just turned 18, and just want to play footy or want to play sport and want to be around their mates and be involved. The Davey boys, they're all at that era I'm talking about. To see them not be able to participate in the game that they love, in the club they love playing at, was a real downer for the club. But the positive thing come out of we got out of the other side of it, and they were able to re-engage. But that was the negative. The positive thing was the way we bounced back, the way that the club united, the volunteers came back, the supporters came back, the scare went away a bit. Probably one of the highlights of post-COVID was the 2022 triple premiership for the netballers. We gather at Marta and Melissa's place every Christmas for brekkie on the morning, and the years after that, the first that's on a roll around on their screen is Ruby shooting that last goal to win after the siren, which is one of the best moments that I can remember at the Seymour Football Netball Club. That was just astonishing, and it wasn't only for Ruby and her teammates but it was a club thing. If you look at the footage, you'll see that stand behind the goals that Ruby shot that goal just explodes. And, great moment.
Yep, that's absolutely wild. And Ruby probably never needed to play another game for the Lions to be a hero for the rest of her life. But thankfully she's come back, and I'm sure, we know those boys from that era that missed a bit through COVID, your Hueys and your Davey boys, have certainly made up for lost time socially. So they're travelling quite well despite going through that. Now, as we've spoken to Pete about, the role of president is pretty all-consuming, and it is an all-year-round job. And 2022, great year, those 3 netball premierships, everyone's flying. Enjoy a little bit of respite, but then in October 2022, the floods hit Seymour in a pretty massive way, and you'll probably downplay your role here, but yourself and the football club led an incredible clean-up and recovery effort right across the community. There was fantastic buy-in from a lot of local businesses and people who just rolled their sleeves up and got things done. So can you tell us a little bit about that period, a difficult one for our community?
Yeah. Well, that was a disaster, the floods of 2022, obviously. I was in my ute with our local member, Steph Ryan, surveying the floodwaters, and I said, look, we've got to get this joint cleaned up. It's terrible. It's going to play on people's minds for years. But in the short term, if we can just put together a team that can bring immediate relief to our residents and our business owners, that would be great. Which was where the idea of the football club being a primary source to start the cleanup was born. And the fact is the footy club did play a big role, yeah, but the broader community was amazing. Like, we would get to muster in the car park at Coles or Woolworths on the mornings to start work, and there'd be 125 people there. Some people came every day, some people for a day, but whatever they gave was good enough. And at the end of all that, Stewie Locke was pretty determined to let council know roughly what the impact and the input financially was from the football club in conjunction with the broader community. That include people with bobcats and backhoes and tip trucks and just people with their hands and their muscles, and buckets and mops. And we arrived at a figure just around about 300,000. So that isn't insignificant. That was a magnificent contribution from Seymour, and Seymour should be very proud of it, as should our football netball club.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. A lot of those businesses involved in and people involved in that recovery effort also donate time and money to the football club. People like Stu Locke, who we've already touched on. He's a past president. He heads up Go Seymour, and it's fantastic that we've got such a wonderful interface with the community here at the football club, and that's high-quality people being involved for such a long period. And speaking a little bit about community, I know you don't want to go into much detail about your involvement, but you've been involved in a lot of different community groups, and you're the go-to guy when things need to get done. You're also on the board of the Seymour Club, and we love the Seymour Club. They are magnificent sponsors of the Mighty Lions. Now, you also oversaw the renovations there last year, which has turned that establishment, which was already absolutely incredible, into a fantastic asset for our community. So everyone should really be checking that out when they come to Kings Park this year. And I'm just wondering, have you had the chance to visit as a patron since those renovations? Perhaps you might have snuck in once or twice.
Yeah, my youth's there a bit, mate. I really enjoy the environment there at the club. Good staff. Beautiful place to go to. I think it's something Seymour was crying out for. It's not the bistro and the bar are fantastic. It's not entirely about the gaming, although it's available there. But the contribution from the club in the for a long time has been fantastic. But it's shifted a little bit in the last couple of years to engaging more with community groups. So just to name a few, the footy club we're major sponsor of, as you know, Eastern Cricket Club, STCA, Seymour Sharks, Seymour Blasters. We've got a program with the Seymour High School, and we've delved into the mental space a little bit with some funding, and also just significantly tipped into the Strathbogie Disaster Relief Fund. So we're very proud of being able to be involved. We're very proud for the patronage we received back from the people we're involved with, and particularly the footy club. It's been fantastic since the reno's been done to see the footballers and netballers get in there and use the space, and it's a two-way agreement, and we're both keeping it pretty well, I reckon, so it's good.
Definitely. We all enjoy heading over there, and also it's fair to say the Seymour gift wouldn't have happened without the support of the Seymour Club. So doing a lot of social good right across our community in that mental health, disaster recovery, and also sport. So they are tremendous supporters of our region.
Mitch, I just want to add one thing. I just want to add a shout-out to the Longwood Football Netball Club, who have been absolutely amazing with their help with the Longwood Fires. The amount of time and work and effort that they put in needs to be recognised by us as other regional clubs. And congratulations to Ricky and his team up there, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, definitely. Ricky's a tremendous asset for that club and that community. I don't know if he ever sleeps, that man, but he's done a fantastic job. And this is one that's going to confuse and baffle a few people, but it's hard to fathom, really, your family's connection to the club. So you're a life member. Your wife, Sandra, is I believe this is correct, the all-time games record holder in the history of the Goulburn Valley in the netball, a life member. Brother Matt is a life member and GV Hall of Famer. His wife, your sister-in-law Pauline, life member. Sister-in-law Ros Rutherford, life member. Sister-in-law Ronnie Hagar, life member. Daughter Lyndall, life member. Daughter Ellie, life member. That's pretty incredible. So you must be proud of not only your contribution to the club, but that of your broader families. That's a dynasty that's hard to top, I imagine.
Yeah, well, personally at home with we have life members' dinners and we just don't invite Meg and Dan.
Fair enough.
No, look, it's a good stat. Veronica, Roslyn and Sandra, I think they ended up with about 1,100 games between them. Now, ongoing, they've got Maddie and Sophie playing. So family structure's still there. Lyndall and Ali could have been life members at the age of 12 here. They were here that much before then. But their contribution to netball and also administration hasn't gone unknown. I should have mentioned earlier that most people in my first year as president realised that Lyndall was actually the president and I was the muppet in front of the joint. But no, she was great there early, but then decided to go and have kids and ruin my presidency sort of stuff. I had to do something. But yeah, just digressing a little bit. The early day, in my first stint, Mardo jumped in and did the bar because we needed someone. He did that. That was fantastic. We raised revenue through there. And then the second stint, we had Dick and Dave doing the bar, just to name a couple. But yeah, look, we're very proud of that stat, and it's pretty pleasing one, mate. Yep.
Yeah, very special, and Meg's been asking for a shout-out, so she'll be glad to know she's missing those dinners. And then, obviously, for you personally, this is our last question before we get into those rapid-fire ones where you lose or make some friendships. Looking back, now you've been out of the role for a couple of years and Pete Elliott's taken over the job. How would you sum up your time as president, and how do you look back and reflect on those two stints?
I enjoyed it, all of it, mate. I mean, there was challenging times where you had, disgruntled people, maybe parents of players or something. I used to shovel them straight off to the coaches. But, no, very, very rewarding to have people so willing to help and to see the progression of the younger kids go through your club from arriving as a 16-year-old to play in the junior grades of netball or the under-18s footy, and then seeing 10 years later when they're 30 and you're still involved yourself, that's rewarding. We've still got players, we've got long-term players now that were there when I started, so that's great. One of the things, it's a noticeable difference not being president. You got more time, but Pete's not allowed to hear this bit. But the one thing, when I spoke to Pete, it was 6 months before the start of the season when Pete took it on. I said to Pete, mate, I reckon you'd make a great president of the footy club. Would you be interested? He said yes straight away. And that was, he was drinking 4X Gold. He was on the light. So I thought, oh, this is good, right? Then I asked him 3 months out and he said, yep, I'm still in. He said, but I've got to ask Alison. I said, can you please ask her? And anyway, to their credit, Pete stepped in. He did a wonderful job with Alison. Don't ever forget that there's the wife or the partner behind the guy who stand up the front is as vital, if not more than the person up the front. Absolutely.
That permission slip is very, very important. Now we're into the pretty exciting bit to finish. This is where you name your all-time favourites. Rapid-fire questions. May not be all that rapid, but the first one, who's your favourite line around the club, your favourite SFNC personality?
Mate, I'm not stupid enough to name one person. I've got a few I'd like to mention. Gary Brown, 35 years club secretary, fantastic. Kenny Daniels, 17 years as treasurer. Karen Wright has been doing the netball stuff for as long as I can remember and been incredibly helpful around the club. Kevy Kane, there's nothing Kevy doesn't do. I reckon I've done the last 25 expos with him, and he'll do them until he can't do them any longer. And one bloke that should never be forgotten is Heb. Yeah. Heb's a superstar. He's a bit slower than he was a few years ago, but he's great to have a laugh with and great to have a laugh at him. But also, another guy is Tony Waite. Tony Waite and Paul Lewis, just heart and soul stuff for our footy club. And I remember Tony putting mercurochrome on my knee when I was, 18. So he's been around a fair bit.
Yeah, and Kevy's got another pep in his step now. We've been cooking the barbecue at the Hopkins Creek Festival. He's pretty excited about the crowd that's there as opposed to the expo, so he'll be cooking onions for many years to come, I'm sure. The best player you've played with?
Oh, John O'Sullivan, yeah. Fantastic player. Jono, I mentioned very early in the piece that Thirds final, Jono and I sat on the bench in that game to start, and 4 or 5 years later, he's playing for Brisbane Bears. So he just worked his butt off. He was a fantastic player for us. He could wrestle with the biggest of them, outmark all of them, and then kick a score himself. So, yeah, he was my best.
And you're about to get a call, Jono, so make sure you answer when your phone rings. Best player you've played against?
I didn't play on him, but there's a guy from Tatura called Alan Thorpe. He was a full forward for Tat. Ended up going to Carlton for a few years and kicking goals down there in the big time. So he was pretty special. I want to digress a little bit. I played in 1991. I played on a bloke called Peter Maynard, and he kicked 5 goals on me in the first quarter. But the biggest problem was he was playing on the halfback line.
Oh,
no. Anyway.
Wonderful. It's good to keep you nice and modest. Best line you've ever seen? It could be Jono again, could be someone else.
Yeah, I've got 2. Obviously, Jono is it, but Sard was amazing, like 700-plus goals in 7 seasons for our club. He was a highlight package in his own right. So, yeah, he was just super to watch. And he was one of the few in country footy who just got people to travel to watch him from everywhere. So, yeah, he was a superstar.
And now this one's going to be interesting. Your favourite line running around at the moment, football, netball. Who do you come through the gate here at Kings Park to watch play the game?
My favourite football is probably Nathan Beattie. I reckon he's got a pretty good little show going on there, and went and watched him when he played in the rep games. He played very well in those. I think he can be a really good player for us. One of the exciting things I reckon this year is that Al McDonald's back. Al is a premiership player with us, I think, in 16. I think that's right.
Sounds good.
Unbelievable player. Would have fielded offers from everywhere all over the state. She comes with enormous skill, ability, credentials, and she's a wonderful person. She will make a huge difference to our netball program. It's one Ellie in and one Ellie out because Ellie's not playing due to being pregnant, which is good on her. Congratulations to her. But I'd also like to just mention the girls that come to mind that have been over there: Sarah Zakulski, Rosie O'Sullivan, Ali Firmister, Courtney Aldis. Those girls who have played in all those A-grade premierships and stuck with our club and travelled. They've travelled, and the day's not in netball like it is in footy. So I really respect those girls for that, and they are, stalwarts. Stalwarts is probably not a nice way to phrase a netball, but they certainly are the embodiment of our netball program, and I appreciate what they've done for our club over that last decade at least.
And the walls would be pretty bare of late without those netballers, so that's been absolutely fantastic. Anything to add before the start of the season?
Oh, no, just good luck. Obviously, the dynamic of the team's going to change a fair bit with some new players in, and also with netball. They've recruited a few, so that's good. It's good luck to Ben and Murph and Ellie over the netball and her coaches, and good luck, Lions, and let's have a great year.
Beautiful. That's a perfect place to leave it. So a huge thank you to Gerard for joining us. It's fair to say the club wouldn't be in the position it is today without Gerard's involvement over, we'll call it, somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 decades will do. I'd say probably leaning heavily towards the 4 now, but an absolute legend of our club, and we're very thankful for everything he's done. So thank you, Gerard. don't forget to subscribe to the Raw Report. We've got some big episodes coming up. We'll delve into 2026 with some of our coaches in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. We'll see you around the den, and thanks for listening.